0 inches, it's really me. After muttering softly, Wu Shaoqi rolled her eyes and walked briskly towards the sealed Origin Chi space. Not far away, Zhou Xingyue looked at Wu Shaoqi's disappearing back and blinked. She then looked at Xiao Yan and whispered in Zhou Bai's ear, "Big brother, it seems like no one has completed the bet between you and Xiao Yan." When Zhou Buyi heard this, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. He naturally knew what Zhou Xingyue was talking about. His sharp eyes also looked at Xiao Yan and softly said, "Wrong. Kang Feng directly eliminated Sang Hao, but Xiao Yan defeated Kang Feng. I should have lost this bet." Without waiting for Zhou Xingyue to speak, Zhou Buyi suddenly smiled and said, "I also misjudged him. I did not expect him to be so strong. Although I am unhappy, he is stronger than me. This is the truth. I think Mu Yuyang has the same feeling as me. You two really appreciate each other." Zhou Xingyue wrinkled her nose and looked at Xiao Yan a few more times. Just when the latter sensed something, she hurriedly retracted her gaze. You've Mu escaped. This is going to be fun. When Lin Dao went in again, Mu Yuyang suddenly smiled and whispered in Xiao Yan's ear. However, there was a hint of bitterness in his smile. Anyone who knew the strange strength of the soul demon would not be able to relax. Xiao Yan pursed his lips and shook his head helplessly. He had also heard about how Old Man Chang and Ling Jiyu treated Xing Qianyue from Su Ziyang. He didn't think about it. He was able to figure out the cause and effect of the incident. One of the 9 disciples, Yuve Mu, had escaped from the forbidden area. Countless soul demons that were hiding in the dark corners of the great world woke up one after another. He would also have a backbone. Now, the true terror would gradually descend. Oh right, it seems like one of the 9 disciples, Tai Chi, is still sealed in that valley in star-severing mountain range. While Xiao Yan was sighing with emotion, he suddenly recalled the valley in star-severing mountain range. Where was he and Jade Fairy? After the battle with Yin Juxuan, they were scared away by the evil aura coming from the depths of the valley. According to Jade Fairy, there seemed to be a king of the Soul Demon clan sealed in the abyss in the valley. If Yuve Mu goes out and rescue Tai Chi, my god, is this world really going to be thrown into chaos? Thinking of this, even with Xiao Yan's composure, he couldn't help but sweat on his forehead. Putting aside the strange strength of the Soul Demon, just their ability to control the heavenly beast was incomparably terrifying. Furthermore, with Yuve Mu's ability, he could even control the holy beast. At the same time, he could also forcefully increase their strength by several times. This method was simply terrifying. Furthermore, the Soul Demon's most powerful trump card. It was the ability to resurrect a dead body, and by relying on the trace of yin qi of the dead. It could revive a dead expert, even though it only had half of its strength. However, it was still quite terrifying. It was a weak soul demon. If he had enough time, he would be able to gather an army of corpses. This was also the capital that the soul demon could rely on just 10 million people to fight against the billions of experts of the great world. The 9 disciples of the witchcraft tribe. Apart from Tai Chi and Yuve Mu, there were 7 others who were sealed somewhere else. Xiao Yan muttered to himself in his heart. With their strange abilities, it was extremely difficult for them to kill the 9 disciples. The only way was to seal them. Even if they were to seal them, it would still take a lot of effort. With the power of the Domain Lord's magical body, they could only imagine how powerful the 9 disciples were if they had to die in order to seal Yuve Mu. Next, Mu Yuyang. While Xiao Yan was lost in his thoughts, Old Man Chiang's voice came from the origin space once again. Mu Yuyang, who was standing beside him, walked in without any hesitation. Xiao Yan let out a light breath and put away the messy thoughts in his mind. Obviously, these things were not something he should consider at the moment. The strength of a monarch emperor did not even have the right to speak at the level of the experts in the great world. Boom! Suddenly, a loud sound was heard, attracting everyone's attention. Xing Qianyu's face was gloomy as he took out the star battleship that he had been riding. The battleship was golden and it was shining with a bright light. Compared to the old-looking battleship of Yunluo Academy, it was undoubtedly of a higher grade. The competition has ended. Starsky Academy will take my leave now. With a gloomy expression, Xing Qianyue cupped his hands towards everyone. Without turning his head, he walked into the warship. Being beaten up by Old Man Chang and Ling Jiyu in front of so many people, he had lost all of his face. Despite that, this anger. He didn't dare to vent it on Kang Feng. After all, Kang Feng was the young master of the Kang family. Furthermore, the matter was too complicated, and it wasn't appropriate for him to hold Kang Feng accountable. "I won't see you out." Before everyone could speak, Old Man Chiang's tough voice was transmitted from within the origin chi space. It was also incomparably cold. Under Xing Qianyu's request, Sang Hao and the others helplessly entered the warship. Kang Feng was walking at the front. His eyes were unusually calm. However, under this calm gaze, there was an incomparably suppressed fury. "Xiao Yan, I originally wanted to fight you, but because of the complicated situation, if I have the chance, I hope that you can fight me with your own strength next time." The moment before he stepped into the cabin door, Sang Shoshin suddenly turned his head and looked at Xiao Yan. With his intelligence, he could vaguely guess the ultimate skill that Xiao Yan and Kang Feng used during their fight. With the enhancement of the origin monarch chi, it was impossible for him to use it without restraint. "I hope so too." Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. Then, he smiled lightly, ignoring the strange looks that the crowd was giving him. He replied with a clear voice. Sang Shoshin was the same as him. He was the highest trial participant in the same batch of academies. This time, he was able to defeat Kang Feng. If he didn't have this ultimate technique, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Kang Feng. It was impossible for him to persist any longer. Sang Shoshin smiled and looked at Xiao Yan. He then entered the warship. The cabin door slowly closed, and suddenly, it shot up into the sky, rushing towards the exit of Star Moon Island. In an instant, there was only a dim light spot left. "Xiao Yan, come in." Not long after the warship left, Old Man Chiang's voice was heard again. This time, anyone could hear a trace of gentleness in his voice. "Wu." His eyes were fixed on Xiao Yan, who had entered the origin chi. On Zhou Yuan's originally calm face, at this moment, there was a trace of nervousness. He couldn't help but clench his fists under his sleeves. As the champion of the competition, Xiao Yan had 3 conditions. This also meant that Xiao Yan might even be able to obtain 3 holy art saint skills. In this way, even if he was stronger than Xiao Yan. "Hong Long, hey." After a moment of silence, the corner of Zhou Yuan's mouth curled into a smile. This was also good, at least it had completely ignited his fighting spirit. When he returned this time, he would let go of everything. He would focus on breaking through to the Emperor cultivation, and Monarch Emperor. This was a clear dividing line. At that time, with the strength of an Emperor cultivation, he would be able to roam freely in the big world. At that time, his strength would increase. It would be even faster. Right now, he and Xiao Yan were competing who would reach the Emperor cultivation first. Zhou Yuan took a deep breath. The trace of jealousy in his heart disappeared without a trace. They were both at the same level, so there was no reason for him to be weaker than Xiao Yan. Xu Mo, who was standing by the side, also seemed to have sensed the slight change in Zhou Yuan. He glanced at the latter in surprise. After that, he shifted his gaze to the spatial origin chi in the center. Everyone was the same as him. They were all waiting for the 5 of them to come out. The 5 students of the Star Sky Academy. All of them had extraordinary statuses. No one would choose their sects. Therefore, the remaining students were their targets. Especially Xiao Yan. Too, after stepping into the spatial zone formed by the origin chi, Xiao Yan looked ahead. Old Man Chang, Ling Ji Yu, and Lu Chong were standing in front of him, while Mu Yuyang and the other 3 were standing at the side. Each of them was wrapped by an origin chi, and their eyes were tightly shut. From time to time, joyful expressions could be seen on their faces. Clearly, they had comprehended something good. "Xiao Yan, you are really not simple. First of all, congratulations on winning the first place in this competition." Looking at Xiao Yan, who was standing in front of him, Old Man Chiang's laughter was gentle. Ling Ji Yu, who was standing beside him, also smiled and nodded. Not only was this young man powerful, he also had 3 types of monarch flame. This kind of luck and strength had completely exceeded his imagination. "Referees, you are being too serious. It is just a battle between Monarch Emperor warriors. In your opinion, it is just a small fight." Xiao Yan smiled and said with an indifferent expression. "It's just a small fight for others, but you and Kang Feng are not." Hearing this, Ling Ji Yu smiled and looked at Xiao Yan, as if he had seen through everything. Back then, All of you were chased by a middle-aged man with white hair and escaped into a forbidden area. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. Then, did you encounter any abnormalities in the forbidden area? Ling Jiyu kept chasing after him, but his tone was still calm. No, when you were fighting Kang Feng, you must have used the ultimate technique above the origin of the star field. I can tell that it is a part of the star law, the star execution. Besides, there's a black flame surrounding you. It should be the all-embracing nether flame. Ling Jiyu said. After knowing everything about him, Xiao Yan didn't try to hide anything from him. After pondering for a moment, he told him about the encounter with the Domain Lord's Dharma idol. Intentionally or unintentionally, he didn't mention anything about the Star Sky tablet. It really is the Domain Lord's Dharma idol. After listening to Xiao Yan's story, the few of them let out a soft sigh. They weren't surprised at all. The Lord should have expected this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given you the inheritance of the star execution. Unfortunately, we have disappointed the Lord. Lu Chang's expression was gloomy as he shook his head. His expression was filled with guilt. My Lord Protector has also said that there is a will of the heavens in this world. With the games of my Lord, Yuv Mu's appearance isn't necessarily a bad thing. Old Man Chang, on the other hand, looked down on Xiao Yan. He revealed a profound smile and then looked at Xiao Yan. He said in a serious tone, "Tell me, what are your conditions?" Xiao Yan's heart skipped a beat. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still said what he wanted to say. I want 3 sets of medicinal ingredients to refine essence-protecting pills. Currently, Xiao Yan had a pill and a set of medicinal herbs to refine essence-protecting pills in his hand. He also had the comprehension of the heart flame burning. If his luck wasn't too bad, with that essence-protecting pill, he would have a high chance of breaking through to the Emperor cultivation. But Xuan Kai Lin, and the other 2. Xiao Yan also had to take this into consideration. When the time came, he would give the heart flame burning to the 4 of them. After consuming the essence-protecting pill, the possibility of breaking through to the Emperor cultivation would be much higher. Although it would be safer to have one more essence-protecting pill, he would need to consume the second one. The effects would undoubtedly be much worse, and people with poor physiques might not even be able to do it. There was also a possibility that he might suffer a backlash. Therefore, Xiao Yan's idea was that he had to succeed in consuming the first essence-protecting pill. Essence-protecting pill? Hearing this, Old Man Chang gently smiled. His eyes did not leave any traces as he looked at Wu Shaoqi, who was wrapped in an origin qi, and then looked at Xiao Yan and said, "Just now, that little girl used a chance to exchange for an essence-protecting pill. If I'm not wrong, it should be for you." Ah! Xiao Yan could not help but be stunned when he heard that. A strange expression appeared on his face. He took a deep look at Wu Shaoqi. He suddenly said, "Then, what conditions did she put forward?" The 3 elders looked at each other. Ling Jiyu said with a smile, "Forget it. You are the first, so you have the right to know. Of her 3 conditions, 1 is for an essence-protecting pill, 1 is for understanding everything about the ancient expert Fire Emperor, and the last one is to ask us about the pattern on a jade pendant." Xiao Yan pursed his lips and nodded silently. His heart was filled with complicated feelings, and he didn't know what to say. Also, why didn't she directly refine an essence-protecting pill? The grade of the essence-protecting pill isn't low either. There is a high failure rate when refining 3 sets of medicinal ingredients. Lu Chang chuckled and said in a clear voice. Xiao Yan shook his head lightly. Although it would save him a lot of trouble if he wanted to concoct the essence-protecting pill, he could only resolve the matter at hand. If he wanted medicinal ingredients, not only would he be able to familiarize himself with the required medicinal ingredients, it would also be of great help to the refinement of the essence-protecting pill. It was impossible for him to come here and ask for them when he needed them in the future. "Are you sure you only want 3 sets? Ling Jiyu looked at Xiao Yan, and as he spoke, the space in front of him slowly shattered. He stretched out his hand, as if he were searching for something. "I only need 3 sets. Xiao Yan nodded slowly. His face was firm and firm. Adding the one in his hand, there were exactly 4 sets. Xuan and the other 3 people each had 1 medicine pill. This also required him to be fully concentrated when refining each medicine pill. He had to put in 120% of his concentration. He absolutely could not fail once. After searching for a moment, Ling Jiyu stretched out his hand. In his hand were 3 red sandalwood boxes sealed by origin cheese. Each box contained a set of medicinal ingredients to refine essence-protecting pills. Carefully putting away the 3 boxes, Xiao Yan could not help but be shocked by the Starfield's collection. Back then, that Emperor Cultivation Senior had spent his entire life gathering 4 sets of medicinal ingredients to refine essence-protecting pills. He did not expect that he would be able to take out 3 sets of medicinal ingredients in a couple of breaths' time in this place. There are 2 more conditions. Ling Jiyu gave the 3 sets of medicinal ingredients to Xiao Yan and said with a faint smile, "Next, can you raise this heavenly weapon by another level?" Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan gritted his teeth and took out the blue flame ruler. He looked at the 3 of them. The current grade of the blue flame ruler was a mid-grade heavenly weapon, and its power was also extraordinary. However, it did not seem to display any combat strength when it fought Kang Feng. Mid-grade heavenly weapon. I'm sorry, but our strength is only around the monarch cultivation. This has already surpassed our abilities. If we were to talk about a low-grade heavenly weapon like that young man called Lin Dao, we might have a solution. Old man Chang could tell the grade of the blue flame ruler with just a glance. He shook his head and said with regret. Xiao Yan quietly nodded his head and kept the blue flame ruler. He had originally taken it out with a trace of hope in his heart. If it was really so simple to refine a high-grade heavenly weapon, a heavenly weapon of this level would not be so rare. Let's exchange it for another one. Ling Jiyu wiped the spatial crack in front of him and said softly. Xiao Yan was silent for a moment and looked at Wu Shaoqi again. He hesitated for a moment and said, "What did she ask about the Fire Emperor?" "About the Fire Emperor's past life and the reason for his death." The 3 of them did not hide anything and said it directly. "All right. My second condition is to ask the 3 of you what the Fire Emperor scripture has to do with my cultivation technique." As he spoke, the origin chi in Xiao Yan's body began to surge. As the origin chains rumbled, a vigorous origin chi gushed out from the top of his skull. Above his head, a map of the burning spell's meridians was formed. He clearly remembered it. When he first entered the realm in Valley and saw Wu Shaoqi, the Fire Emperor scripture she cultivated had a strange combination with his burning spell. A Fire Emperor and a vast ancient book had appeared. There seemed to be an inexplicable connection between them. Since Wu Shaoqi had asked the 3 of them about the Fire Emperor scripture, she had naturally shown them the cultivation channels of the Fire Emperor scripture. With their profound knowledge, they might be able to find out about this burning spell that even Elder Yi had never seen before. The 3 of them were startled when they saw the map of Xiao Yan's meridians. Then, their hearts skipped a beat, and they all recalled the Fire Emperor scripture meridian map that Wu Shaoqi had used before. After comparing the 2, they observed it for a while. The shock in their eyes became stronger and stronger. The connection between the Fire Emperor scripture and the burning spell was extremely strong. It could be said that there was a 30% similarity, but for some reason, it gave them the feeling that the Fire Emperor scripture in their minds. It was like the respect of an emperor when a subject saw it. 1 inch weird. Old man Chang looked at the image of the meridians above Xiao Yan's head in shock. He shook his head and clicked his tongue. Clearly, he was very surprised. They had long heard of the reputation of the Fire Emperor scripture and knew how powerful it was. However, compared to this strange map of meridians, it seemed to be on a completely different level. "You 3 seniors don't know each other?" Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan's expression darkened slightly, but he still didn't give up. "The 3 of us have followed the Domain Lord for tens of thousands of years. When the Domain Lord fell, he sealed the 3 of us. 1,000 years ago, the Guardians used a great divine ability to wake us up from the seal. We have witnessed the great rise and fall of the ancient era. We have seen all kinds of ultimate techniques and techniques. But you, I really don't remember." Ling Jiyu scratched his head and said embarrassingly. Xiao Yan smiled bitterly when he heard that. As the origin airflow circulated, it dispersed the image of the meridians in the sky. "I hope the 3 seniors can keep this cultivation technique a secret for me." After a pause, Xiao Yan cupped his fists and said sincerely. The burning spell's root had been kept secret until now. Up until now, only Elder Yi and Wu Shaoqi had seen the burning spell. If it wasn't for the fact that they knew about the relationship between the burning spell and the Fire Emperor scripture, Xiao Yan wouldn't have shown it in front of the 3 of them. "Don't worry about that." Nodding his head, Old Man Chang said in a deep voice. He couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. Xiao Yan had mentioned 2 conditions in a row, but none of them had the ability to fulfill them. Apart from the fact that they were powerless to advance to a high-grade heavenly weapon, they had never seen Xiao Yan's cultivation technique before. This made them blush and feel embarrassed. If that's the case, please tell me the most detailed information about Mingan Divine Domain, seniors. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Yan finally spoke. He had used such a precious opportunity to understand the Mingan Divine Domain. It was after careful consideration that he decided to make a trip to Mingan Divine Domain after the 4 academies competition ended. Whether it was to recover the 1,000 Leaves ancient monarch fire or to improve his strength, this was a trial that couldn't be avoided. It was the best opportunity to understand everything about Mingan Divine Domain. Mingan Divine Domain. All right. Upon hearing this, Old Man Chang heaved a sigh of relief. Compared to the previous 2 conditions, these conditions were much easier. The space in front of him shattered. Old Man Chang extended his hand and searched for a moment. When he extended his hand again, there was already a silver scroll in his hand. It recorded everything in Mingan Divine Domain. Whether it is the major sects or the capable people, all kinds of interesting things, including mountains and geography, they are all recorded on it. After handing the silver scroll to Xiao Yan, Old Man Chang chuckled. There was a hint of pride in his tone. The scroll contained the most detailed information about the Mingan Divine Domain, and the same books in other sects could not be compared to it. There is another condition. Tell me. After Xiao Yan put away the silver scroll, Ling Jiyu spoke again. I need a movement technique monarch skill. I wonder what level the 3 seniors can give me. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan looked at Old Man Chang and the other 2. The corner of his mouth raised slightly, as if he was saying it intentionally or unintentionally. Currently, with the help of the monarch skill, aside from the first style of the White Tiger arts, however, the latter was merely the monarch spell. Currently, he could easily reach the peak speed of the 9-rotation wind-flowing body with just the speed of a monarch emperor warrior. However, he lacked a stronger movement technique, the monarch skill. The highest level. How's the holy arts? Ling Jiyu raised his eyes and said with a smile. Of course I have no objections. I just wonder if the 3 seniors are willing to part with it. Xiao Yan smiled casually when he heard this. You are really greedy. Holy arts. That is something that even monarch cultivation warriors like us would covet. There are only a few monarch cultivation warriors who possess the holy arts. Old Man Chang looked at Xiao Yan and couldn't help but laugh. You 3 are being too serious. With your status as seniors, I'm afraid that you have seen a lot of saint arts, let alone the holy arts. Xiao Yan naturally wouldn't believe what Old Man Chang said. He smiled and said, That's what you said. Ling Jiyu narrowed his eyes and smiled. He looked at the other 2 people and then looked at Xiao Yan. The fact that the Domain Lord has passed down the inheritance of the Star Execution Realm to you means that he values you. Since that's the case, we won't be stingy with it. After saying that, Ling Jiyu waved his hand and shattered the spatial zone. Endless starlight suddenly appeared in the pitch-black spatial crack. The starlight approached from afar and enveloped the entire spatial zone in an instant. Swoosh! Swoosh! Dazzling stars suddenly flashed in front of Xiao Yan's eyes. In the next moment, a spatial storm roared. Stars rushed out from the spatial crack and gathered in Ling Gu's hand. They turned into a book with sparkling starlight on top of the book. On the book, there were 4 big shining words. Starlight Silent Step. This is the movement technique of a guardian of the heavens, the monarch skill. It has reached the level of the holy arts, and it is very difficult to cultivate it. Ling Jiyu took a deep look at the book in his hand and smacked his tongue. Although he was reluctant to part with it, he still handed it to Xiao Yan. Suppressing the wild joy in his heart, Xiao Yan calmly received the book in Ling Gu's hand. As soon as it came into contact with the book, Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed. A sharp aura was transmitted from the book. It was as if numerous surging starlight swords were about to pierce through his palm. Kai! A sharp glint instantly agglomerated in Xiao Yan's eyes. The origin chi in his palm roared. A crimson gold flame swayed and appeared. The flame whistled and this penetrating feeling was immediately reduced by a great deal. Xiao Yan clenched his teeth tightly. He wasn't worried that the monarch flame would cause any harm to this seemingly fragile book. He forcefully endured the intense pain and grabbed it. Previously, when his strength was only at the monarch spirit, he had also encountered such a situation when he grasped the heavenly monarch fire-burning body. If it wasn't for the fact that he possessed the monarch flame. But now, it was only the aura of the holy arts, so it naturally wouldn't cause him any harm. Huff! The flames and the invisible sword of stars collided violently, producing a series of explosive sounds. Old Man Chang and the other two only saw Xiao Yan's hands slowly approaching the book in their hands, and didn't show any intention of helping him. If they couldn't even withstand such a tiny bit of aura suppression, it would be a complete joke for them to cultivate the holy arts. Ka! Suddenly, Xiao Yan exerted his strength with his arm. The sound of the sword of Starlight breaking was like a sonic boom. Xiao Yan also smoothly grabbed the book of Starlight's silent step in his hand. Not bad. When they saw this, the three of them gently smiled. They appeared to be quite satisfied. This Starlight silent step was a movement technique that one of the protectors of the heavens had cultivated. It naturally carried a lot of Starlight energy, and Xiao Yan was able to withstand it. It wasn't easy, but it was far from enough to merely withstand this force, and he still had to defeat the art spirit that was devouring it. Only then would he be able to comprehend this holy arts a step further. Thank you, seniors. After putting the book into his storage ring, Xiao Yan bowed slightly to the three of them. After his original storage ring was shattered by the Star Region Lord's magical body in the Forbidden Area, the latter had created another one for him. Its quality was far greater than the previous one, so he naturally didn't have to worry about the powerful aura of the holy arts shattering the storage ring. This movement technique, the holy arts, is quite mysterious. If you cultivate with all your effort, you might be able to see the ultimate path of movement. Nodding his head, Ling Ji-yu revealed a mysterious smile. Before Xiao Yan could say anything, Old Man Chang waved his hand. Mu Yuyang and the other three who were wrapped by the origin qi immediately woke up. When they saw Xiao Yan, they were stunned for a moment, then a joyful smile appeared on their faces. After experiencing it just now, they had also gained a lot of benefits from it. All of you can leave now. The rest of the matters will depend on you. The three of us are not qualified to interfere anymore. Pausing, Ling Ji-yu said, "Just now, I have been told that no matter where you go, you have to prioritize raising your strength first, in order to deal with the soul demon that might erupt at any time." Quote, Zero Xiao Yan was shocked when he heard what Old Man Chang said. He looked at Lin Dao and the other two men. He had only told Mu Yuyang about the soul demon. Since Old Man Chang had said so, this also meant that he had told Lin Dao, Wu Xiaoqi, and Mail everything that had happened. As expected, after listening to Old Man Chiang's advice, other than Mu Yuyang, Lin Dao and the other two nodded solemnly and agreed. When they each came here to make their own requests, the three of them told them about the soul demon. They were extremely shocked and knew the reason why Kang Feng had changed so much. Swoosh! Ling Ji-yu gently waved his sleeve, and the space formed by the origin qi had already disappeared. Their figures once again appeared in front of everyone's eyes. They have finally come out. Everyone exclaimed softly when they saw this. They took a deep breath, and then their eyes revealed an incomparably blazing gaze. They had traveled thousands of miles just to find one or two outstanding students for their respective sects. They had waited for this moment for 2 months. Su Ziyang's pupils shrank when he saw the 5 of them. He looked at them carefully as if he wanted to see something. After all, each of them could give 3 conditions to the 3 of them. This kind of opportunity was not easy to come by. If they could get the item that would help them the most, their strength would definitely increase by a lot. 3 academy leaders, follow me. Ling Ji-yu jumped up and looked in the direction where Su Ziyang and the other 2 were. His voice sounded beside the latter's ears, and then he flew into the distance. Swoosh! The expressions of Su Ziyang, Yi Zan, and Tang Hong changed when they heard this. They followed closely behind Ling Ji-yu. The reward for each student had been completed. Next was the reward for each academy. Alright, I have made everyone wait for a long time. Next, it is time for everyone to wait for the right to choose. Everyone can propose various conditions to attract these students to join your sects. Let's make this clear in advance. This is based on their wishes. No one can force it. Old Man Chang smiled and looked at the experts from the various sects who were eager to join him. He waved his hand and all the students came to the central position to announce the start of the so-called draft. Zhu Tianwo, I am from the Celestial Domain Fire Palace. I sincerely invite you to join our sect. With your ability to control flames, your strength can definitely advance further in our sect. As soon as his voice faded, an old man in a red robe spoke hastily. In profound crystal realm, everyone could clearly see the techniques that each student displayed. Hence, each student was not chosen as the strongest student. They were the ones most suitable for their own sect. Zhu Tianwo was slightly stunned when he heard that. He did not expect that the first person to be asked was him. Spirit Fire Palace. After hearing what the red-robed old man said, Zhu Tianwo couldn't help but sink into deep thought. His heart was slightly moved. He was a Saint Spirit Fire body, so he had some understanding of some of the powers in the star domain, especially the Spirit Fire Palace. It was said that everyone in the sect cultivated fire attribute origin cheese, which was very beneficial to his cultivation technique. While Zhu Tianwo was pondering, the other experts didn't stay idle either. They all stepped forward and invited their favorite students. A few of them even offered a large sum of money to rope in a student. Young Master Zhou, if your sister and you are willing to join our Hao Yuan Palace, the Palace Master will definitely take you two as his disciples and teach you the 9 heavens vast Yuan mantra. A white-bearded old man in a blue robe from the sacred heaven realm looked at Zhou Buyi and said in a loud voice, Young Master Zhou, you'd better join the Shangqing Palace. All the previous masters of the Shangqing Palace have had several encounters with the patriarchs of the Zhou clan and have a deep friendship. If the two of you join the Shangqing Palace, you won't have to worry about the preferential treatment. Even the great primordial purity mantra, which is famous in the star field, will definitely be imparted to you. Another silver-haired woman waved her hand and proposed a more tempting offer to Zhou Buyi. After all, the great primordial purity mantra was a famous technique in the star field. Some of the techniques were even on par with the great circulatory cycle revolution of the Zhou clan. Lin Dao, our sect needs someone as murderous as you to join us. With your talent, you will definitely become one of the most powerful people in the star field in the future. An old man with sharp eyebrows looked at Lin Dao with a pair of cold eyes, as if he was looking at a perfect piece of unpolished jade. In his tone was filled with wild joy. Mu Yuyang, the technique you used just now should be the Green Lotus Sword Truth. Although I don't know where you got it from, it's only a beginner. The inheritance of Green Lotus Sword sect came from the ancient era, and was created by an ancient mighty figure, old ancestor Li Taixuan. He killed people in 10 steps. 1,000 miles without a path. I think you will be very interested in it. A white-browed old man with a white blade embroidered on his robe narrowed his eyes. He looked at Mu Yuyang with a faint smile, as if he was certain that Mu Yuyang would join them. Green Lotus Sword Sect. Mu Yuyang's heart shook when he heard this. His originally calm eyes looked at the old man in the sword robe. Under the smiling expression of the old man, he slowly nodded his head. For a moment, nearly 30 elders from various sects on the mountain peak began to rope in their favorite students. The benefits that they reported were greater than the previous ones, making it impossible for people to reject them. Xiaoyan, while the other students were surrounded, there were naturally many experts by Xiaoyan's side. Without waiting for the crowd to speak, there was no need to wait for them to speak. Xiaoyan had already spoken. Thank you for your kindness, everyone. However, I do not wish to join any sect for the time being. Everyone, please do not waste your breath on me. With your ability, if you join my Star Abyss Pavilion, you will definitely have some achievements. An elder still didn't give up and spoke. Xiaoyan smiled bitterly and cupped his hands towards the people around him. After that, he jumped up and avoided being surrounded by the crowd. Xiaoyan had never thought of joining a sect. After all, there were too many restrictions in a sect. Given Xiaoyan's character, he really couldn't tolerate others pointing fingers at him. Swoosh! Xiaoyan landed on a huge rock at the edge of the mountain. Before he could stand still, a beautiful figure rushed over and landed beside Xiaoyan. It was Wu Shaoqi. Why did you come out? Xiaoyan was not surprised when he saw Wu Shaoqi. He casually asked, I am not interested in joining any sect. He pouted. Wu Shaoqi's beautiful eyes were watery. She looked at Xiaoyan and said, What do you plan to do after it ends? Me? I will naturally advance to the Emperor cultivation first, then go to the Mingan divine domain. Xiaoyan had already made up his mind and said without hesitation. Mingan divine domain. Wu Shaoqi nodded lightly when she heard that. She pondered for a moment and suddenly looked at Xiao Yan with a smile and said, I also plan to go to Mingan Divine Domain. Why don't we go together? Sure. Xiao Yan smiled when he heard that. He had a slight guess about Wu Shaoqi's purpose of going to Mingan Divine Domain. Flame Lord had once ventured into Mingan Divine Domain. It was very likely that he had left something behind in Mingan Divine Domain. Wu Shaoqi might have learned something from Old Man Cheng, so she wanted to go to Mingan Divine Domain. By the way, this is the essence protecting pill I asked for from you. With it, the risk of you advancing to the Emperor cultivation will be much smaller. She stretched out her jade-like hand and took out a transparent jade box. Wu Shaoqi handed it to Xiao Yan and said, Thank you. Although he already knew about it, Xiao Yan still had a thought in his mind. He didn't reject it and took the transparent jade box. He had a complicated feeling in his heart. The only thing he could do was to figure out the relationship between the burning spell and Fire Emperor scripture as soon as possible. At that time, he might be able to give Wu Shaoqi some help. You have helped me so much. This essence protecting pill is my reward. He patted Xiao Yan's shoulder. Wu Shaoqi seemed to have achieved her old goal. Xiao Yan smiled and looked into the distance. He did not say anything. He also knew Wu Shaoqi's character. Being overly polite made her seem more like an outsider. Suddenly, Xiao Yan's gaze paused. He stared intently at a young man in the distance. The latter's appearance looked so familiar. Zhou Yuan? He has been here all this time. Two Zhou Yuan and Xu Mo stood together. The latter did not compete with the others for the outstanding performance of the students. In his heart, Zhou Yuan had already achieved his goal. His future achievements and potential would definitely not be inferior to these people. Yuaner, let's go. You have also seen the strength of these students. When we return, you will have motivation. Xu Mo said with a big belly. The students here could be said to be the most outstanding young men of the young generation in the entire star field. In the future, they might become the strongest of the generation. And these people would also be Zhou Yuan's opponents in the future. He nodded. Just as Zhou Yuan was about to leave with Xu Mo, he seemed to have noticed Xiao Yan's gaze. A bright light flashed in his eyes, and his sharp eyes also looked at Xiao Yan. In an instant, they looked at each other. Long time no see. Looking at Xiao Yan, Zhou Yuan no longer had the shock he had when they first met. He smiled slightly, and his lips moved slightly. In profound crystal realm, he clearly knew the strength of Xiao Yan. The strength that Xiao Yan displayed after defeating Kang Feng. It seemed like Xiao Yan was even stronger than him. Long time no see. Looking at the distant Zhou Yuan, Xiao Yan also understood the former's lip reading. His eyes narrowed and Xiao Yan could not help but sigh in his heart. He did not expect that this fellow was still alive. Fortune played tricks on people, and the two of them met here once again. Recalling the first time he had met Zhou Yuan, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth curled up into a smile. He had already thought it through. He guessed that Zhou Yuan's target was the Holy Art's heavenly monarch fire-burning body. Due to some unknown factors, he had obtained it, and it had become one of his most powerful techniques. The seemingly wild and unruly Zhou Yuan now seemed to be much more restrained, but he was like a sharp sword. He had found a suitable scabbard and temporarily concealed its sharpness. When it was pulled out from the scabbard, the sharpness it displayed was enough to shock everyone. Zhou Yuan did not have the intention to go forward and talk to Xiao Yan. He seemed to have forgotten about the cooperation between the two of them back then. He merely cupped his hands towards Xiao Yan and gave him a deep look. After which, he followed Xu Mo and left the mountaintop and flew downwards. Who is that person? Wu Shaoqi asked curiously as she looked at Zhou Yuan's departing figure. She could clearly sense the qi of the former, which was different from the qi of an ordinary monarch emperor. He's the same as me, a very strong guy who has just broken through to the monarch emperor. Xiao Yan lowered his head and said in a soft voice. Nodding her head, Wu Shaoqi did not ask any more questions. Ripples flowed in her beautiful eyes, and the smile on her pretty face gradually disappeared. In its place was a look of worry. Xiao Yan, do you think the soul demon will really cause trouble again? Wu Shaoqi lowered her head slightly as if she was muttering to herself. Old Man Chang and the other two had mentioned it to her before. The soul demon was in chaos in the ancient era. That period of history could be said to be a tragic sight. The entire great world had fallen into an abyss of misery. Mountains and rivers were overturned, and the stars lost their luster. Xiao Yan was silent for a long time. Then, he let out a sigh and let out a long sigh. Since Yuv Mu has escaped, he won't hide anymore. Kang Feng's strength has already reached the half-step Emperor cultivation. After being controlled by Yuv Mu, he has reached the Emperor cultivation level. If he finds an opportunity to control other heavenly sovereign-level experts, he will most likely have the strength to fight against a supreme saint. Xiao Yan's mouth twitched slightly as he continued. What's more, none of the 9 soul demon disciples have died. Most of them have been sealed. If these seals are removed and the 9 of them join forces, their strength might really bring chaos to the entire great world. Wu Shaoqi sighed lightly when she heard this. After a long time, she finally said leisurely, I am worried about grandfather. With his age, it is extremely difficult for him to advance his strength. If the soul demon is in chaos, with his strength, he will not be able to do anything. Wu Shaoqi's eyes gradually became determined as she spoke. A hint of solemnity also surged onto her pretty face. Therefore, I need to go to Mingan Divine Domain and integrate Flame Lord's ability as soon as possible to increase my strength. Only then can I protect my grandfather and the academy. At the end of her words, Wu Shaoqi smiled slightly. Her black eyes blinked like the stars in the night sky. A gentle breeze blew over and lifted up her jet black hair. It was extremely gentle. Flame Lord has traveled the entire world and the main place is the Star Moon Spirit Domain. How can you be sure that there will be a legacy left by Flame Lord in the Mingan Divine Domain? Looking at Wu Shaoqi's appearance, the trace of irritation in Xiao Yan's heart disappeared, and he asked softly. You still remember this jade pendant, right? Wu Shaoqi flipped her jade palm and took out a red jade pendant. On the jade pendant, a lifelike strange beast seemed to be roaring at the sky, looking very lifelike. Seeing Xiao Yan nod his head, Wu Shaoqi continued, I have asked 3 seniors about it. The beast on it is called Open-Minded, an ancient beast. It has the pure bloodline of the vermilion bird, and is one of the guardians of the Mingan Divine Domain in the ancient times. Therefore, I believe that there might be something related to Flame Lord in the Mingan Divine Domain. Enlightenment. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded his head and carefully looked at the strange beast on the jade pendant. The strange beast spread its wings and soared into the sky. Although it was only a carving, it was still full of boundless momentum. Xiao Ao, do you know how to be enlightened? On the surface, he carefully looked at the jade pendant on Wu Shaoqi's hand. In his heart, Xiao Yan could not wait to speak. I know, that is one of the strongest purebred bloodlines of the vermilion bird. It is much purer than the bloodline of the little black bird in Forest Domain. The lazy voice of the Xiao Ao was heard, but there was a trace of anger in the last sentence. Obviously, it still had the appearance of the 9-nether profound bird in its memory. How about the details? Xiao Yan's heart moved. His face involuntarily revealed a trace of joy. Although the vermilion bird isn't like the azure dragon, where there are countless descendants, there are still quite a few of them. Kai Ming, Ghost Chariot, Bai Fang, and Golden Crow are collectively known as the 4 great divine birds. They are the purest descendants of the vermilion bird, and their strength is also outrageously strong. That's all I know. The Xiao Ao yawned and said lazily, 4 great divine birds. A strange expression appeared on Xiao Yan's face. The 4 ancient spirits really had more and more descendants. However, he had never heard of these 4 great divine birds. What's wrong? Wu Shaoqi asked curiously when she saw the uncertain expression on Xiao Yan's face. It's nothing. This jade pendant is really unusual. Xiao Yan smiled and shook his head. He then looked into the distance. After half a day, the so-called talent show had ended. Of course, there were some who were happy, some who were disappointed. Su Ziyang, Yi Zan, and Tang Hong had returned as well. The 2 of them returned to the central zone and asked around. They also knew the decision of the crowd. Mu Yuyang had joined the Green Lotus Sword sect. Lin Dao had joined the Lifeless Heavenly sect, and Zhu Tianwo had joined the Fire Spirit Palace as expected. The 3 sects were very famous in the Star Domain. Zhou Buyi and Zhou Xingyue had rejected all the invitations. As young master of the Zhou clan, with their cultivation resources, naturally, they didn't need to be bullied by any sect. Both of you should have your own thoughts and plans. This is good as well. Traveling around the great world will be beneficial to expanding your strength and horizons. Looking at Xiao Yan and Wu Shaoqi, Su Ziyang smiled gently. There was also an unconcealed smile on his stern face. It was obvious that the Yunluo Academy had obtained immeasurable benefits this time. The 4 academies competition has finally come to an end. After returning to the academy, it doesn't matter if you want to stay in the academy and continue your cultivation or go out, it will be up to you. This competition can be considered as a graduation exam. Congratulations, you have all passed the exam. Su Ziyang looked at the 5 people in front of him and said with a smile on his face.